What is up, gamers? I'm Rick. Look how they massacred my boy, Kackis here. Thank you guys so much for stopping by. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button to support the channel, and let me know what you want my next intro name to be. That comment section is out of control. Alright, today we are going to be discussing, frankly, one of the most important and impactful pieces of information to come out of the most recent Bungie weekly update, the TWAB, and that is the fact that Bungie is finally nerfing Anarchy. And I say finally because, frankly, this has been a long time coming. The Anarchy is, I think, pretty obviously the best PvE exotic in the entire game. The things that the Anarchy is capable of doing are frankly unbelievable. I would say that it rivals in Destiny 2 what the Galahorn could do in Destiny 1. Maybe not in the same way, it's sustained damage instead of burst damage, but just the effect it has on the game, the effect it has on builds is truly astronomical. And so Bungie finally nerfing it, it's gonna change a lot of stuff in PvE. So let's take a look at what the Anarchy does for anyone who may not know. This was actually an old raid weapon dropping from the Scourge of the Past raid back with Season of the Forge. Its one intrinsic trait is arc traps. Grenades stick to a surface and chain arc bolts to other mines. So essentially there's kind of two ways people use the Anarchy. They either use it as a trap weapon, so you can shoot a mine on the ground, and if enemies walk by, they'll get electrocuted and take damage. You can connect two mines, so then there's a little, arc lightning bolt going between them, and if enemies walk through that, they take damage. But you can just directly stick enemies. If you stick them with one of the projectiles, they'll take continuous damage over time, and if you stick them with two, those will also chain between each other, and that is what you do for maximum damage. If you stick three on a target, it's not going to do any more damage than two. So the reason the Anarchy is so damn good is because it lets you do some pretty amazing things in terms of damage output. Firstly, it provides a ton of sustained damage over time. If you stick an enemy with two projectiles, it's very likely that enemy is dying, even if it's a yellow bar, etc. So 2 shots of Anarchy will do so much more damage than 2 shots of a normal heavy grenade launcher. However, because that is damage over time, if you were to shoot like all 6 shots at an enemy, it would do nowhere near as much burst damage as 6 shots of another heavy grenade launcher. But because it is damage over time, it lets you combine things for insane DPS. Stick an enemy twice with the Anarchy, switch to a sniper, and be hitting that enemy with your sniper doing damage with that, while the Anarchy is also doing damage in the background, so you're doubling up on damage. And the Anarchy isn't the only weapon that can do this. The Witherhoard is a great example of an Anarchy alternative, and after this nerf, I would expect the Witherhoard to rise in value quite a bit. In fact, Bungie should be looking at maybe addressing that in some way, because it seems like the obvious thing to use if they go too hard on the Anarchy. But speaking of, what exactly is Bungie doing to the Anarchy? Well, we don't exactly know, but what they've said is the following. Anarchy has done too much, too well for too many years, without even counting the boost it's gotten this season, which is due to the sweet grenade launcher artifact mods. So we're making changes that make it great at a couple roles, rather than being the jack of all grenade launchers. But that point right there is extremely important, and I think that is why there has been a little bit of pushback to this Anarchy nerf. I think most people understand that the Anarchy is so darn good, it is pushing out some other builds, which is definitely a negative. However, Bungie really needs to ask itself the question, why is it the jack of all grenade launchers? Why do people just rush to use this thing in endgame PvE activities? Because like I said, yeah, it's great at sustained DPS, but a normal grenade launcher has a much better burst DPS. Why are you always choosing sustained DPS? And it's because of how the PvE endgame functions. If you go and play a Grandmaster, you'll notice right away you get one-shot by pretty much everything. Like, I've been one-shot sniped even though I've had a sniper resist mod on. Champions will absolutely murder your face if you dare to stick your head out for more than 2 seconds. And again, even with resist mods, you'll have to put on, a sniper resist mod and the right element often to resist a shot from an enemy champion. So if I only have 0.1 milliseconds to poke my head out and do some damage to a champion, to a big boss before I get absolutely melted, I have to use something like the Anarchy, because then I can go pop, pop, shoot 2 shots right away, and in the background you're going to see it's all Grandmaster gameplay. And then with barrier champions, you wait for the shield to come up, you pop it, maybe a few more ticks, and then you deal with that champion. With other champions, you stun them, then you double tick with Anarchy. But the important part is that you're getting your damage out with the Anarchy, and then you're going back to safety. You're dipping back behind cover. And so you've kind of got to ask yourself the question, is the Anarchy so good by itself that it's pushing out these other options? Or is the way that Grandmasters and endgame PvE are designed, with the fact that you only have a fraction of a second to get your damage on, does that mean that the Anarchy is the only logical choice? Because guys, I've used the Wither Horde in a couple of Grandmasters because it's a little bit better at clearing out ads, it's getting ammo more frequently because it's special ammo, but the tactics remain identical. You inflict that damage over time, and then you're back behind cover into safety. And so, if you're using weapons that can't do that, you're putting yourself at a disadvantage. A great example is with stuff like trace rifles, other than the Divinity, and machine guns. Those are actually pretty darn efficient in terms of how much damage they can deal and how much ammo they get, right? The Cold Heart actually puts out a ton of damage, especially when you consider just how much ammo it gets for a single brick, but I'm not going to be standing there in a GM out of cover DPSing with the Cold Heart. I'm going to get melted before I get any sort of actual damage on target. And so I think you could make the argument that if Bungie took a design pass on resist mods and making the resilience stat actually matter and actually save your life more often in PvE, that would limit the Anarchy's usage. People would start using other options because they wouldn't be melted if they stuck their head out of cover for more time than it took to shoot 2 Anarchy shots. But with all that being said, I'm going to be a little bit of a devil's advocate to my own argument. I think the Anarchy still does need a nerf, because that's only one part of its usage. The other part is DPSing bosses. And for that, you don't need to duck behind cover or anything like that. It's just too efficient. It does too much damage for getting 2 ticks and then switching to double slug shotguns or an incredible sniper or whatever. And that is really the crux of the issue of the Anarchy. That is pushing out so many alternatives, because there's a lot of heavy weapons that do great DPS, but they don't do as much DPS as the Anarchy combined with specials. And so that becomes like the obvious answer for every DPS phase pretty much. And so I think that is really the argument towards the Anarchy being simply too powerful and not just it being the only viable choice based on how Bungie expects you to play endgame content. And I want to make something clear. By me saying that you get melted in 2 seconds, I'm not making the argument that stuff like Grandmasters are too difficult. I've beaten every Grandmaster out there. I'm Gilded Conqueror times a million, right? That's not the issue. But if you're melted by everything, again, it forces you to play a certain way. It forces you to play slower, more methodically, and it limits the options of what you have to utilize. And my worry here with the Anarchy nerf, I'm not saying that Bungie should not nerf the Anarchy, but what I am worried about is that if they only nerf the Anarchy and don't take a look at why the Anarchy is so darn good and why its usage rate is so high in endgame activities because of everything we talked about, then those activities are just going to become less fun. You're going to have to use a worse Anarchy, like potentially it'll still be the only viable thing to use, it'll just be worse and more annoying to use, or everyone's going to switch to the Wither Horde, or everyone's going to use other things like maybe going back to the Xenophage plus the Divinity, and it's just going to be less fun. People are still going to be able to do it, but your Grandmaster times are going to go up by 5 minutes, and it's just going to slow the pace of those activities down even more so. That's my worry. So I think they need to look at how those endgame PvE activities play out and potentially change, turn some wheels, turn some gears in the background to enable more viable builds, more viable weapons, and so that you can actually stick out of cover for more than a millisecond. That's my point. What do you guys think of the Anarchy nerf? Do you think it was too much? Do you think this was a long time coming? Would you like to see the same changes I'm suggesting for endgame content? Let me know in the comment section down below. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, found it informative, and if you did, please remember to help me out by simply rating and especially sharing this video. If you guys want to see more Destiny 2 content similar to this, don't be afraid to slap that subscribe button. If you want to get in touch with me and keep up to date with the latest channel activity, the best way is to follow me on Twitter at RickKackis. That is linked in the description down below. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.